it to me. Give it to me. Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah, baby. It's September, and it's 105 degrees, and I don't care if there's background air conditioning noise or fan noise, because doggone it, we're melting. We are melting in Southern California right now. I'm physically melting. And I want you to know I'm here in the room with Andy, who's in a fall colored tank top. And yep,
I've kind of reverted to summer attire for today.
Yep. You had to. It's going to be 105 degrees in the world headquarters.
Yeah.
I think clearly global warming is a myth. So, and we're here today with Izzy Ray, and it's I-Z-Z-I, and Izzy's going, she's going a sleeveless Star Wars tee.
Yeah, it's full-on summer today.
It's full-on summer today, so I like that. Izzy just tried to get us to record half an hour later just so she could have more time to sleep.
Stop!
I want you to know we're recording at 11.
Stop!
And she said, hey, guys, could you do 11:30? And we're like, no, Izzy, we know exactly what you're doing. We know what you're doing right now,
the cat's
Izzy.
out of the bag.
We're already 6 hours behind on posting this. So
Yes.
it's Monday morning.
Yes.
Guys, I'm sorry.
No,
All
you're
right?
not. No, we just know what your evil heart was asking for.
Sinner.
So last episode, we talked a bit about this article, Dear Church, Here's Why People Are Leaving You. And we looked at the first 3 reasons your Sunday productions have worn thin. You speak a foreign language. Your vision can't see past your building. And we said, hey, if you'd be willing to share a bit with us about your struggles, if that is a struggle for you. And we got some emails, some of which dealt with the lack of authenticity, some of which dealt with the church's conflicting messages on sexuality, some of which dealt with the fact that the church spends more time reaching new people than discipling the people that are already there. Some talked about how the church of Jesus looks very little like Jesus. And I think we can all, I don't think there's a lack of problems or issues that we could point out, because at some point the question has to become, well, why even do it? Why even participate in it? So I want to start by distinguishing when people leave the church. Here's what we mean. Okay, in the scriptures, and we've talked about this, it's a collectivist mindset, right? We are, for those who follow Jesus, the New Testament teaching is that you are rescued into a people group. You have a new family is a metaphor, a new household is a metaphor, a new citizenship is another metaphor. You're part of a new body, which is a metaphor. The idea is you are part of a collective now called the Church of Jesus. When we say we're leaving the church, you can't leave that one. That's the one you're saved into. That is the corporate identity you now have, regardless of whether or not you participate in the visible expression of that. Mm-hmm. It's like saying, well, I'm in New York this week and my wife is in California, so we're not married. Distance has nothing to do with that, right? It's to use a big word, Izzy, an ontological reality. You are baptized into the body of Jesus. Right. So what we're talking about is, Dear Church, here's why people are leaving you. We're talking about the visible expressions and the visible corporate expressions of Western American Christianity.
Yes. And
some of those things have been wearing thin, but there's no way to leave the other thing. This beautiful bride of Jesus is one of the pictures that's used as well, right? So we're not just individuals who all have a discipleship relationship to Jesus. We're a collective that make up the body of Christ on earth. All right, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Izzy.
You're welcome.
Izzy's still waking up. I'm not gonna lie. And Andy last time pulled a picture of Izzy up that makes Izzy look like probably a 40-year-old mother of triplets.
Whoa.
Whereas Izzy in real life is 20, and it could be a triplet.
I am not a triplet.
That's
would be quick to own triplets of cats.
Yes.
Oh, that's actually really accurate.
Yes. If we ever do a podcast on cats, Izzy will.
Guys, I'm here all day.
Because
I'll be here at 9 a.m.
Because if Izzy, so if Andy were an animal, he would be a golden retriever. Big brown eyes.
That's really good.
He's faithful.
A
he's
shed
loving.
everywhere.
You have lots of hair. You slobber a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, that's just something I've noticed. Izzy would be a hairless cat.
Why hairless? That's
Izzy,
so rude.
Izzy. Well,
it's the only kind of cat that I dislike.
Oh,
so.
okay.
What's
All
the name of the cat from Austin Powers?
I don't
Mr.
even know.
Bigglesworth?
Yes.
Great.
So
Mrs. Bigglesworth.
So because Izzy's kind of got that sort of cat vibe. It's kind of like, I'm here, but I'm not really here. I'm subtly communicating that you're lucky to have me. It's kind of a beautiful.
I identify way more as like a chubby, very furry cat.
Okay.
Like that's kind of, I'm sleeping all day.
Sleeping in the sun.
Yeah.
All right, I like that. All right, and if I were going to be an animal, I'd be a walrus. I don't think there's any question, or a manatee.
Or like a.
I just kind of a sea cow, kind of a sea cow. I'd float around and take up large amounts of space. Thank you, Andy. So anyway, all right. So back to.
Kind of have a thing for manatees. By the way.
Back to you do.
They're kind of the greatest animal ever.
They really are. They're very cuddly.
They're very gentle.
So cute.
They are very gentle, but they're very large.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like to think that describes me. Yes, personality-wise.
Yeah.
They bring a lot of grace to the swamp.
You know what? They love the swamp.
Yeah.
They're one of the things in the swamp that helps.
If there's anything in Florida that's really attractive, that's it.
Yes. Boy, that's true. And the buffets. I love the buffets, man. You get in there, you get the key to a Florida buffet is it's this. They change it over at 4:00. So you get there at 3:45, you pay a lunch price, and they swap out to the dinner buffet. That's how that works, guys.
Wow.
That's for free.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now there are two other reasons that this article talks about here. Dear church, here's why people are really leaving you. All right, so and lots of fodder for discussion here. He says number 4. So we covered the first 3 last time. This is number 4. Dear church, you choose lousy battles. We know you like to fight, church. That's obvious. When you want to, you can go to war with the best of them. The problem is your battles are too darn small. Fast food protests, hobby store outrage, and duck-calling reality TV show campaigns may manufacture some urgency and Twitter activity on the inside for the already convinced, but they're paper tigers to people out here with bloody boots on the ground. Every day we see a world suffocated by poverty and racism and violence and bigotry and hunger, and in the face of that stuff, you get awfully frighteningly quiet. We wish you were as courageous in those fights, because then we'd feel like coming alongside you. Then we'd feel like going to war with you. Church, we need you to stop being warmongers with the trivial and pacifists in the face of the terrible. Boom. What do you think of that?
I want to see if we're assimilating these words, just because the article says peacemakers. Do we want to pacifist versus peacemaker? We're calling those the same thing?
Oh, I thought it said pacifist right here.
I got on the article I'm looking at it right now. It says peacemakers.
Well, on the article that I copied, it says pacifists.
That one sounds paraphrased. So on this side, there's a little more wordage to that.
Well, why don't you shut up?
Number 4.
The one that the people have sent me is this one.
Got it.
So this is the one, Andy. To quit trying to take over, Andy.
I'm
Andy,
just leveraging
first you say
strong journalism
manatee.
here by going to the source.
No, I copied the source. All right, Mizzy, what do you think when you hear that?
I mean, I think Facebook is a terrible judge of like what's going on, but I have just noticed that we've just been very argumentative.
You're on Facebook? A millennial on Facebook?
You know what?
With your parents and grandparents. That's amazing.
Okay, leave me alone. Don't worry about it.
No. There's great cat stuff on
Honestly,
on Facebook.
I see like a lot of really weird videos.
Right.
Yeah.
And where are you going with that, though?
Yeah. I think we're just like super argumentative, and like when you're a very argumentative person, you take like little teeny things and you're like, but this is a really big deal, and I don't know what the heart of this issue really is, but I think I've seen this play out in myself and like with other people that I know that are a similar age, when the church really pours into like the youth and makes them like very passionate, really fired up, super intense, they will just like, they're willing to like die for these battles that that the church is fighting. And then when they go out into the real world, inevitably they are like, whoa, there's so many more things that I didn't know about. That happened to me when I moved out here. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a world. There's a whole world. And I had no idea that there were so many issues. And it just kind of made me ignorant when I was like so focused on like
in the
little
bubble.
Yeah.
In the bubble.
The bubble, guys.
Yeah, in the youth group bubble.
Oh man.
In Montana.
Yeah.
Which you know, yeah.
It was
Seriously.
small.
Yeah.
Seriously. Now, Andy Bear, what do you hear when you hear that?
Okay, so what I hear is that American consumerism has fed kind of a turnkey desire for very efficient forms of interactive justice and opinion. So what I mean by that is we've been very trained to pick and choose things very too quick and too effectively. We're not very good for process, and we're not very good for things allowing to take time. So I feel like when a church often will pick up on something to fight, it feels like it's got to be something that can be solved quickly or make a strong stance about. And like, you know, just kind of, but the problem with that stuff is it's in and out, you know, like we spin up some big social justice thing at our church for 6 months. And then once that thing's done, it's done. You know, maybe there's still some people kind of lingering out there that participated in a ministry or mission, but otherwise the attention to that thing is just moved on, and the church just kind of keeps moving on and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. That just circulates back to whether it's beneficial and, you know, for what the church is trying to accomplish on a grand scale.
Right.
I totally agree with her. We're very used to, I mean, using something like Facebook as our aggregate for receiving information and like finding out what's news. Cause I have friends who look at really good news sources regularly. And then I have the majority of my friends who just pull from multiple news sources or shared news sources that come from their feed and all that kind of thing. So yeah, we get a very convoluted picture of what's actually happening in the world and to what effect. And
I just read TMZ.
Yeah.
And I find that helps me get a kingdom perspective on everything.
Yeah. I mean, to the entirety of the whole statement. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's like the church wants to go to bat like with how politics kind of function. So they kind of, it seems like they step into a sphere of advocacy, but the follow through on that always just seems to me just so short. Like right. I rarely come across a church that's saying like, hey, we've been like focused on something for 10 years and we haven't strayed from something else because it's a long haul process. Yeah. And we're okay with sticking with it and being patient and not being distracted by anything else you could pick up and just get fatigued on compassion.
Right.
Yeah.
I think some of this is fed by an artificial distinction between something called evangelism and something called social justice. Mm-hmm. So in very early in the 20th century, there were liberals and there were fundamentalists, and they were going to war, baby, over the core of the gospel. And there became this term. There was this term called the social gospel, which became associated with the liberal wing of the church, and that was the church that was very much this world focused on education and on poverty and on initiatives like that. And then you had the fundamentalist camp, which was really focused on the inerrancy of the Bible, the fundamentals of the faith, and saving souls. Mm-hmm. And part of the Christianity we've inherited is that disjunct, that there is that this is the Titanic, and why would you rearrange chairs on a sinking ship, versus hey guys, let's just go out and be good people. And you know, if someone asks about Jesus, great. And so you have each side critiquing the other by saying, well, no, I mean, you've got to share Jesus to actually share Jesus. Or other people saying, listen, the Bible, the first thing the Bible tells us is to care about creation. And the Old Testament is full of, and so is the New, full of admonitions to take care of poverty. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I think the removal of that division, to recognize that the witness we're to have towards, if we're a follower of Jesus, the witness we're to have about the reality of Jesus in us is both in word and in deed, and both are necessary. And that caring about bigotry and racism and violence and poverty, those aren't liberal issues. Those are very much God-centered, gospel-y issues. because the message of Jesus doesn't never in the Gospels, it never was about what happened when you died. The message of Jesus was never, hey, believe in me and you will go to heaven. The message of Jesus was, hey, reconsider and reorient your entire life because the kingdom of God is now invading our current reality. And of course, there's an otherworldly thing that's out there, of course. But the kingdom was very much, and that's where Jesus would proclaim the good news about his message, and he would demonstrate it by healing people, by delivering people, by I'm trying to think of a non-churchy way to talk about casting out demons. And I'm like, I got nothing other than casting out demons. So Jesus modeled both sides of that. And I think part of the reason we pick lousy battles is because we still think caring about the environment, caring about poverty and wells and clean water and all of those sorts of things, that's just liberal stuff. And that's just absolutely not true, not even remotely true. In fact, James has this great line in the letter attributed to him that just says, here's what true religion is. To take care of widows and orphans and abstain from being polluted by this world. And Jesus is so, Jesus, particularly in the book of Luke, has so much to say about money and right use of money. Mm-hmm. So part of the choosing lousy battles is we're still operating in an operating system that should never have existed in terms of it was splitting two things apart that were never meant to be split apart in the scriptures, mm-hmm. right? That true discipleship means we love neighbor. And what's neighbor mean? We seek flourishing. Mm-hmm. And that means education, and that means water, and that means medicine, and that means we are worried about racism, and all of those things. Make sense? Yeah. You guys agree with that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Do we think folks then, to which side is, I think I know what you'll say to this. So, because there's two like wrongful choosing, so to speak, because like one kind of like large part of culture this day and age that's really active on social justice types of things. You also have what's called like lifestyle evangelism, right? Where people will I'll kind of live my life as best as I know how based on what I'm learning from the Bible, but I'm not going to necessarily be that forward on talking about Jesus, and I'll kind of wait till people talk to me about it, and hopefully my example will kind of shine through, and then that conversation will come about organically and naturally. Right. And the other side is very much like the overtly upfront truth-bearing type of people that are like, well, truth, like if it's grace is me telling the truth first, and they need to know this is what's going to happen if they don't know. Right. And so it's like, to me, I see that as very binary divides in our modern day. Yep. And it's kind of rarely do I find what the middle looks like, at least from a public kind of observation for what's out there to look at.
Sure. Well, part of it is the fact that there is such a negative perception of Christianity and Christians that very rarely does talking first help alleviate that negative perception. And so I'm sure there are times, right? There have been instances, but where leading with conversation does that. But like with the guys I go on ride-alongs with, Fullerton Police, it wasn't until they saw me as somebody who was normal or relatively that they were at all interested in my opinion on things. Yeah. Right. Sure. Yep. And I feel like the more negative publicity that some segments of Christianity receive, the more active we have to be to counter those perceptions. Now, sometimes that's vocally. Mm-hmm. For sure, but other times it's presenting the alternative in lifestyle. Okay, and I think that's very so. In a world that just where families just sit on their phone, we're a family that has dinner. In a world where neighbors don't ever know each other, we want to be a family that knows our neighbors and invests in them. Like those sorts of things. Sure. Now, there is a very clear understanding that be ready to give an answer for the hope that you have. Of course, absolutely. Yeah. But that's not sharing a track anymore. That's just sharing your story. This is what Jesus has done. This is who Jesus is, and not feeling the pressure like it used to be, many years ago, that it was your job to close the deal. I just don't. Deal closing. People are onto that. They hate that. I hate that.
Yeah.
So I think that in response to this separation, part of what we've got to do is speak where speaking helps, and everywhere else we work and we show. We show, don't tell, and that's our posture. And the reason our posture has to be that, as opposed to like Paul, where Paul can go and he can tell, because people haven't heard of this new thing, right? So he can just lead with telling, right, and then show, and show as he's telling. Right? But to some people, it's not that people haven't heard some of the message about Jesus. It's that they've heard it in such a way, or they've seen it in such a way that it violates the very message that they're told that they need to believe. Make sense?
Yeah.
And so they just go, no way.
Yeah.
So that's one section for me, is the artificial disconnect between doing Jesus stuff and talking about Jesus things. But the second one is how we see our place in the world. So we have a hangover from being at the center of Western culture, right? And we talk about that like, the good old days, make America great again, take back America for God, blah, 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 blah. And we always say, well, when was America exactly Christian? When we owned slaves? When we were, when we were pillaging Native American lands? When exactly were we Christian? I'm not sure about that.
Boston Tea Party, when we all, wrecked a ship full of goods from.
Well, I'm glad that. I mean, hello, I'm glad we're here, right?
Yeah.
However we got here, but it's this idealized mode of like the Christian past just is so whacked. And because of that, we fight to hang on to the vestiges of cultural influence.
Yeah.
So, man, you gotta freaking say Merry Christmas, because Happy Holiday just represents the secularization of the church. You've got. I mean, talk about the Starbucks cups last year.
Cups.
Oh my
You
God.
just talk about how idiotic. You're just like, oh my goodness, and it's because we're not used to feeling cultural marginalization. We're used to seeing ourselves as powerful players in culture. We're used to seeing ourselves as a voter bloc that needs to be catered to. And I think for a whole new generation of us, we're so unbelievably alienated by those dumb hangings on to cultural relevance that we're completely put off. So I think he's on to something, because I think for me, if you're gonna fight. If you're gonna fight culture, how did Jesus fight culture? Well, first he critiqued his own. So he never went rampaging into the Roman temples. He cleansed the Jerusalem temple, right? His place.
Right.
Second thing was he always embodied the alternative. He always critiqued by creating, and so and he would preach, but he was preaching against the abuses of Judaism, not the abuses of Rome. Which is so fascinating, so fascinating, and so I just think there is a welcoming that the church needs to embrace of marginalization. Jesus has always done his best work on the margins, always on the margins, and there is this. I just read a book called The Insanity of God, and it's by a missionary who failed as a missionary, and who decided that in response to his failure, he was going to go hear stories of the persecuted church around the world. And so he tells these stories. Sometimes these stories happened 15 years ago, but he's waited to tell them so that nobody was implicated. And they are the most ridiculous, like straight out of the New Testament stories you have ever heard about the kind of stuff God is doing in places around the world. And then the question is, well, how come he doesn't do that here? Well, and the answer is very, very simple. We've so ruled him out because we're not happy with weakness. We resist persecution. We resist. Our Christianity is designed to keep us from the very circumstances that God uses most to grow his people.
Whoa.
Boom.
Whoa.
So
my healing isn't a matter of like my lack of faith.
No. Although faith plays a part.
Sure, it does.
There's no question about that. But the judgment that it's because of your lack of faith that you weren't healed is evil.
Yeah.
So it's back to the consumeristic thing that says that God exists for my fulfillment, and that following him should fulfill me rather than empty me. And I love it when the body of Jesus gets behind something, so it's sex trafficking.
Right.
And international justice mission. And there's some really amazing things being done in the name of Jesus. But there's also this, this kind of symptom thing. So I worked at a church where we had a place for homeless people to come and get supplies. And I started going out on ride-alongs with police officers into the community, and realizing that it was precisely because the church was handing things out that there existed this problem. Now the problem existed for bigger reasons than that, right? I mean, it's a massively complex problem.
Right.
But I talked to two 17-year-olds who had run away from home, that were on drugs, and they simply said, why would we ever go home? We get to do what we want, and there is a church every day that feeds us. Mm-hmm. And I love that, and I'm thankful for that, and I'm so glad. But then you realize that very often what would happen is the food or the vouchers or the whatever that would be handed out would then be sold for drugs or manipulated, or it was this whole awakening that's captured in books like Toxic Charity or When Helping Hurts. That the churches often, even when they step into this arena, they often, according to one of my buddies, he said very often social justice initiatives are existential drugs for rich people.
Whoa!
They help us just feel better, like we're doing something.
Yeah.
And so when we tried to shut this handout thing down, and or to move it to downtown, and to reorient it around actually empowering the people who wanted to get out of homelessness, which isn't the majority. Right. The vast majority are just fine. We received massive amounts of conflict, and so it's just an interesting mindset. The battles being fought by some of the previous generations versus the battles that want to be fought by those, using his line, with bloody boots on the ground. Izzy, you get last comment.
Oh man, I don't know, not to just keep saying the same thing, but the separation between the two major things of extremes, on each side. I think it just really, I think I'm kind of taking this back to a few minutes ago. But I do feel like people just want to see authentic people talking about real things, when you're talking about sharing your faith or just displaying that in your life, you just want to be real. And I think that's right. That spills over into the battles that you're fighting and these things that you're talking about and fighting for. You want to care about them, and people see that. If you're just fighting some battle that you don't even really care about, but you're oh yeah, this is a big deal right now, or whatever, you want to actually care and put time and effort into it. And I think everyone can tell, everyone can just see
absolutely
through those things,
And I think part of, Izzy, I think that's dead right, because so often we're always inviting people to join our battles, and we refuse to join theirs.
Yeah. So
when the LGBTQ community, is promoting the AIDS walk, let's say, or fair housing, anti-discrimination laws, or whatever. There's a sense in which I think Jesus people can walk with and in for those sorts of concerns when our African American brothers and sisters are feeling totally marginalized by the police, by the criminal justice system. Whether or not you agree is irrelevant next to the willingness to stand out of compassion with our brothers and our sisters, and the fact that we don't do that. People have to join us, we never join them, because think about it. If what we're saying, because people will say this to me, well, I can't ever support Black Lives Matter because I don't agree with everything. But when we invite people into the church, if that's the way we present it, that you have to agree with everything, then nobody's ever allowed to be in process in the church.
Right.
Right. So you've got to swallow the whole thing before you ever show up.
Right. Where your orientation becomes to fulfill that and not to focus on Jesus, because it becomes oriented towards aligning with the stance of that church.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So I think that's really good. Is the point.
Yeah.
All right, so you kind of had the second to last word. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I had to
Well, that's fine.
mansplain. I had to mansplain that.
Right. Yeah.
All right, Izzy. Number 5. Your love doesn't look like love. And Andy, I don't care what it says on your phone right now. This. I'm reading this.
Well, now I have it up on my computer,
Okay.
so
All right.
now Izzy can see it too.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's good. All right. Love seems to be a pretty big deal to you, church, but we're not getting that when the rubber meets the road. In fact, more and more, your brand of love seems incredibly selective and decidedly narrow, filtering out all the spiritual riffraff, which sadly includes far too many of us. It feels like a big bait and switch sucker deal, advertising a come as you are party, but letting us know once we're in the door that we can't really come as we are.
Oh, man.
We see a Jesus in the Bible who hung out with lowlifes and prostitutes and outcasts and loved them right there, but that doesn't seem to be your cup of tea. Church, can you love us if we don't check all the doctrinal boxes and don't have our theology all figured out? It doesn't seem so. Can you love us if we cuss and drink and get tattoos and, God forbid, vote Democrat? We're doubtful. Can you love us if we're not sure how we define love, marriage, heaven, and hell? It sure doesn't feel that way. From what we know about Jesus, we think he looks like love. The unfortunate thing, you don't look much like him.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right, Andy. What's your reaction? All right, Izzy.
Izzy can go first.
I'll take this one. No, oh, man. It's a lot. I think, I don't know exactly why that is, but I just think that it's so much easier to not really, really love people. Like it's so much easier to kind of pretend like you do, or like to not fully love them, because it's dirty, it's messy to really love people and walk alongside them. And I think it's so much easier when you aren't fully committed to those people. When things go weird or you don't agree, it's easier to just like move on and just be like, well, I don't want to get into that.
Too messy, yeah.
Yeah, it's so much harder to like stay committed and to like keep loving them and work things out with them and be there through all of that mess. But oh man, that's a lot.
Does this
goes
resonate?
deep.
Does this resonate with you?
Oh yeah, things happen when you don't really love people. Like you treat people differently, and like you see that. So I've experienced things, and it's really opened my eyes to be like, oh wow, like you didn't really feel true like love for these people because you're hurting them, and like that shouldn't happen if you're actually acting the way that Jesus would act in that situation. You know?
That's good. So you've seen the brunt of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, firsthand.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. Do you want to tell the juicy details? Okay.
Not today.
Okay. I like
I'll save that.
All right. Andy, did that spur anything?
Yeah. This is where I wrestle with this one, not because I don't think it's not true. I can see what he's talking about. My struggle with this is kind of goes back into some of the other 4 points of how an organization teaches its what. Because for example, why do people keep wanting bigger churches? Like, from an independent point of view, consumer point of view, if we stopped going to big churches, well, then big churches wouldn't keep thriving, right? And it's like, what is in our independent view of what we're supposed to be doing as Christians? Because if we're convinced that showing up every Sunday and doing whatever program we're presented is gospel, then it's like, is that teaching bearance on the church that's presenting that, or is that on our own ignorance for not going farther with what we're actually looking at as what's supposed to be like the most sacred word in the world? Like, I just think there's responsibility on both ends of that, because if for the same reason, I think we said this on the last show, it's like you don't see the pastors of small churches that are in the grind with the 30 people that go to their church where they are like solely into their lives. They would tell you like, oh, I can tell you what love looks like, because this family over here, this is what's happening. This is what we have to do on this small church level. But the second you get to a large enough scale, all of a sudden now the pastors can't be involved, because like, oh, well, I got to manage all this other big stuff. They become very CEOs, and they're not like they're the managers on the lower level that are really dealing with people on the daily basis. So it's kind of, to me, it's a systematic byproduct, but it's also so much on the responsibility of what we choose to actually engage with. You know, I mean, if I do think we would start to see a more loving type church if we could actually see a more loving type church. I mean, I can't jump on social media and find, 100 churches under the audience of 50 people located in California to figure out how do I participate with like a real small church where it's like real small community where we really get to kind of go deeper on that nitty gritty.
Yeah.
Now, churches could figure out how to better resemble what Jesus is taught us as far as how love is applied and how we're supposed to engage with it. I totally agree with that. So that's where I would kind of bear the responsibility on, topical teaching or teaching directed as self-help and kind of twisting all that stuff out. And then we absolutely lose the breadth of, I think, what Jesus was intending us to accomplish. Right. So yeah, that's kind of, those are the thoughts I have when I kind of see that.
Yeah. No, and I think I'll take a crack at it too. I think the word love here is so misunderstood, right? Because the word love is so squishy. Yeah. It can mean it can be a substitute for tolerance, which is Izzy, what you're getting at, a very low level like niceness. Where we just kind of keep to ourselves and we engage superficially, but if it gets really crazy, we're just kind of moving on to the next sort of relationship and the next sort of community, and we just kind of skim.
Right.
Through communal life together. Love can be used to describe my affection for Pearl Jam and ice cream, or my affection for my wife and Jesus, right? Which those are two totally different things. And so when we talk about love, the word agape is always used in Christian circles, and that word refers to the self-sacrificial, self-giving, I'm committed to you without any expectation kind of return love that Jesus so clearly demonstrated. And that's where, you get Jesus wandering around saying like, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. If someone slaps you on the cheek, and we've talked about this, right? This is an honor and shame thing. Do to others as you would have them do to you. No one takes this at all seriously. Yeah. I mean, that's just me. It's if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Yeah. If you only love Republicans, if you only love straight people, if you only love white people, if you only love conservative evangelical people, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. Right. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. But love your enemies, do good to them, lend to them without expecting to get anything back. So there he's talking about that there was a reciprocal culture back in the day where you would only do good things to people that could pay you back, and you would have people indebted to you. And so when he's like, dude, just break that whole thing. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because he is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful. And you just go, man, what church looks like that? What Jesus people look like that, right? I mean, oh my goodness. And that's where, because we pick lousy battles, we make enemies of people who aren't enemies. I mean, if you take seriously the teaching, our enemy are the powers and the principalities and not flesh and blood. So much of this just comes to straight, we just don't take this seriously, even remotely. Right. Even just not even close to taking this seriously. So when it comes to Christians who are gay, when it comes to Christians who are democratic, when it comes to Christians who don't believe in the virgin birth or whatever it is, right? I mean, there are these massive disconnects between what we are supposed to do with those people, because we think the goal of our Jesus following in evangelical circles is to be right. So that's the goal, right? Because what we've made following Jesus doctrinal. So I got to have the right doctrine. I've got to have the right view of the Trinity and Genesis 1 and Revelation and women in ministry and blah, 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 blah. What's the Bible really teach and blah, blah, blah. And when you make rearranging mental furniture the point, then being right, having the right mental furniture becomes the goal. Jesus was so abundantly clear. So was Paul. Above all else, put on love. And what kind of love? Agape love, the self-sacrificial, the self-emptying kind of love that expects nothing back in return.
Right. Yeah, like the other day, you painted that analogy of a burning house.
Yes.
And if
it was amazing.
Yeah.
It may have been the greatest sermon point in history. We were talking about, and it was yesterday.
Yeah. It was yesterday, but it was also at our meeting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
what she heard.
That's what I was talking about.
So, sorry. So, yeah, the analogy is, why did God send Jesus? Mm-hmm. So was God angry and he needed someone to vent his cosmic wrath on? So, well, here's my son. and hey, Christians, you're supposed to be happy that I took it out on my son. That's supposed to make you love me. Or because we're in this very slow, pokey, like phrase by phrase thing on John 3:16, or was it out of love? And the difference is this: if my wife were trapped in a burning building, as someone who is in a covenant love relationship with her, I would go without thought or hesitation into that burning building to see if I could help rescue her. Right. And that would be true. It would also be true if she were in there because she were foolish. Hey, I warned you, that building's dangerous. Hey, I warned you, don't ever be in that thing. That thing's a tinderbox. Hey, I warned you, and you're just being dumb by going into that building. I'm not sitting there thinking those things when I see the building's on fire and she's in it, right?
Right.
I'm running it.
Yeah.
But if you push the analogy one step further, and let's say she were there, and obviously this would never happen because I'm amazing. But let's say she were there because she were interested in another guy, right? And she was there to have an affair. And for whatever reason, she gets trapped and the building's on fire. And I know that's why she's there. So it's not just foolishness, but it's actually like she's cheating on me. Yes. Yeah. Would I still go in? Absolutely. Because that's what love does, right? That's what covenant love does. And so I carry that as sort of the dominant image rather than an angry father who takes it out on his son so that other people don't have to get it. I'm like, no, I think like sin is real. God is offended. But he's grieved in the same way I would be grieved that my wife had gone into the building to have an affair. Would there be anger? Of course there'd be anger, but it'd be a grieving anger,
right?
And it wouldn't stop me from going into the building. So the analogy there is okay, if that's what love looks like, the seeking of to benefit others at cost to oneself, if that's what love looks like, then this point is absolutely dead on. Right? We don't allow people to be in process. We just don't allow people to be in process. We're very good in letting ourselves be in process, right? So I'm working out my porn issue, and I'm working out my greed issue, and I'm working out the fact that I'm attracted to a coworker issue. But man, somebody comes in and they're in a different process, or they're in a slower process, or they're dealing with an issue that has been no problem for me. Man, that's when the judgment starts, right? And that's when love becomes difficult, because it's just easy to love those who love us and who love those who are like us. And Jesus so clearly speaks against that. See, I think this is the root of all the others.
Yeah.
If we were, and this is why you get a church that's been entertained but never discipled, because when Jesus is presented as fulfillment of us rather than the emptying of us, then what you get are folks who are in it as long as it's easy, right? And as long as it works, and as long as it's beneficial. But as I follow Jesus, and I still, man, I'm tempted by all those things, there's this emptying that takes place that is eminently painful, and the relinquishing of our rights for the benefit of other people. And so when you're criticized, to be silent. So when you're insulted, to be kind in reply. I mean, oh my goodness. So imagine if Christians practiced that on social media, right? That's all we did. We were just kind on social media. We were just kind. We put up our God loves you like little Facebook post, and somebody flames us, and then we just say, man, bless you. I hear what you're saying. We're just kind. On Twitter, we're just kind. We're to our neighbors, we're just kind. We're just known as kind people.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But that goes back to something we talked about very early in our podcast. We spend too much time judging others, and we don't judge the house our own house.
Yeah.
You know, because people are convinced other people are bigger sinners than they are, right? So I'm the biggest sinner in this room, Andy. I'm sorry. You're a close second. but clearly, no, I think this is it. I think this is the big one.
We almost should have read the list backwards.
Huh.
Right.
Yeah.
So when your love doesn't look like love, you choose lousy battles. Your building becomes impressive and you can't see past it. You speak in a foreign language because you're more worried about insiders. And your Sunday productions, it's become all about that.
Right.
Yeah. That unlocked the whole thing.
Boom. Yeah, Mr. John. So write it backwards next time. No, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's why people.
Well, it's interesting because you could almost read it as an emotional ramp, though, too, where it's kind of like starting with the stuff that's on the surface and working its way through it till you get to the core of the issue. And
but here's the objection.
You end up landing there.
But then here's the objection, Andy. All right, if you love people like this, don't you just solidify them in their sin?
Love people like what, though?
Like what Jesus is inviting us to do. Because doesn't Jesus confront sin? Doesn't Paul confront sin? Aren't we supposed to care about holiness? And aren't we supposed to care about like upright behavior and righteousness and all these big words? Aren't we supposed to care about those things?
Yeah, we're supposed to care about those things. But I think it's how we view those things are accomplished. I think that's the difference.
Oh, go.
Whoa.
Oh.
So, because
Rant.
it's like, as you were talking about the whole concept of love, it's like what I'm imagining is like what you said too, like to what value is it for you to just receive love for the person that's giving it to you? You're not extending grace to someone who is loving you, that's praising you, but rather when that is, if it's reoriented, and I see this in the greater picture of what Jesus calls us to do, right? Absolutely, is there thankfulness and praise for what Jesus has done for us personally, but Jesus calls us to take the love we've received and put it back out into the world and serve the world. It's like, to me, if I spent all my time just focusing on giving my love to Jesus and nothing else, I feel like Jesus would be like, I have all the love that I need. But there's so many more out there that don't have it. So go and give it so I can fill you so you can keep going and giving.
Or he would say, the way you love me is by loving your neighbor.
Right, exactly. And that's the disjunction of the how. That's where it falls. That's to me where it falls apart. And I think, sure, the criticism is we have so many folks in churches that absolutely love Jesus and they can't see past loving anything else. And how that's done, the love of neighbor is lost. The love of the enemy is lost. The love for poverty is lost. The love for the marginalized is lost. And because if they can't take those categories and place them in Jesus, they don't know how to love it.
Yeah.
And so it's rather than Jesus saying I am on the backside of that effort.
Yep.
Go and love poverty and you will find me.
Right.
Go and love those on the marginalized
That's
and
right.
you will find me.
That's
That's the picture he's constantly painting.
Wow.
So it's a complete reorientation of the direction that love is actually placed.
You have justified your non-paycheck by just that right there.
There you go.
Yes, that's so good.
That's really good.
Is what do you have to add?
No, that I can't even add on to that. I'm still chewing everything that you were saying. I need to just marinate in that.
Chewy
quick.
goodness from Andy Bear.
Yeah.
The fandies
It's a gummy bear.
It is, yeah.
A gummy Andy Bear.
It's a Gandhi bear.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it is so interesting how all of this works itself out, because the big critique is if you love people this way, you're not confronting them. You're not confronting them in their sin. You're letting people just kind of live how they want. And yes, there is very clearly in the New Testament a telos, an end. When I parent my kids, I'm loving them towards something, right? And that something is maturity. And certainly Jesus loves us towards maturity. Well, what's maturity? Well, it's Jesus likeness. Interestingly enough, right? But how do you get people there? Do you get it by criticizing them? Do you get it by nagging them? Do you get it by having them participate in programs? What transforms people? Well, for sure, suffering transforms people always. Suffering transforms people. I think engaging in ancient spiritual practices opens us up to transformation in ways too. But I think one of the least neglected transformative and most beautiful acts of transformation is this self-sacrificial love practiced on those who aren't like us. And here's what I mean. When my enemy does something that is completely unexpected, right, and beautiful, I mean, that opens me up in ways I could never have been opened up otherwise, right? If we're just debating and all we're doing is kind of getting heated, but when someone lowers themselves to apologize first, when someone humbles themselves to not have to be right, when someone lets the other have the last word even though you could crush them, I mean, those sorts of things, like displaying this self-costly love, I think is absolutely transformative for folks. And I think when people live in those sorts of environments, because they're so rare, they are opened up in ways they wouldn't be otherwise. And so I see one of the major tasks of the church in 21st century America to be putting on display this kind of love. And let's be clear. Yes, we have agendas. All right. Yes, that agenda is to love like Jesus loves. And the way Jesus loved, he was quite clear that not every way was a Jesus way, and that not every way of living was a Jesus way of living. Yes, granted. But how did he confront people? He confronted them out of this costly agape love and fellowship, eating with them, taking hits to his reputation in order to be with them. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful picture. So my response to people who say, don't we have to confront people in their sin? Is to say, well, first, if we're going to confront people in their sin, let's talk about yours first. All right, if we're going to go confronting sin, let's talk about yours. All right, and let's talk about mine, and then we'll talk about someone else's. But then it's secondly, what's the best way to confront sin? Is it by opening Bible passages to people who don't understand the Bible? Is it by standing on a street corner and confronting people with the 10 Commandments and trying to convince them they're sinners?
Yeah.
Or is it by displaying costly kind of agape love in recognition that sort of love opens people up to things that they wouldn't be open to otherwise?
Yeah. It's just the value of that word is just coming through so clearly right now. The thought of like love costs something when you're giving it to something that doesn't deserve it. Like if love costs nothing to just give it back to someone who's giving it back to you.
Correct.
You know, it's like it loses its value in that. But when you,
because it's not love.
Yeah. But it's when you give it out where you're not going to necessarily get return.
That's right.
And you're not going to be able to like know its value because the value is going to be on the beholder, not you.
That's right.
All of a sudden its value is increased based on how it's received. I mean, it's such a different.
It is. There's the love that recognizes worth and the love that bestows it. So like the love that recognizes worth is the love that we're all familiar with, right? That's the love of dating. It's the, man, I really like you. Why? We have a lot in common.
Yeah.
Or you know, you're just so beautiful. Or, you know, you have a great personality and you make me feel great and I feel alive. And that's the love that recognizes worthiness in something else. The love that bestows worthiness is the love of God. And the best analogy I have for it is my sweet brother, who will hear this in Sacramento, used to have this pillow, and this was, I don't know if you remember it, Brad, it was the rattiest yellow pillow, and it was awful. It was just awful, and it was just, you couldn't, at one point we had to stop washing it because it was so frayed and so thin. And if you lost it, we would have to turn the car around. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Was there anything noble and worthy in that pillow? No. It was my brother's love for that pillow. And this is like 2 years ago, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. It was my brother's love for the pillow that made the pillow so worthy, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't because of some beauty in the pillow.
Right. Or we all recognize the love of pillows.
Right.
So I got to get on board. I'm like, no, I get it. I love pillows so much. I'm with you. Let's go get that pillow.
Yes.
I don't even use a pillow.
I don't.
Yes. I know. Seriously. So the love of God in Christ is exactly that kind of love that God gives rain and sun to the wicked and to the righteous. God loves the unkind and the unthankful just as much as he loves the kind and the thankful. It's indiscriminate. Yeah. And it's a love that bestows value. And that's exactly right, Andy. Your agape love isn't agape love until it costs. right? Because it's bestowing worth, it's not recognizing it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm sitting looking at a homeless person and my head becomes full of whatever judgments there could be or cultural narratives they could be, well, they need to get a job, or they're on drugs, or it's their fault, or whatever it is. The agape love side comes along and says, no, this is an image bearer. This is someone for whom Jesus died. This is someone who was someone's son and daughter, right? This individual has worth because of God's love for them. And all I'm to do is to recognize the worthiness that God's bestowed on them, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's not their own worthiness, but it's the worthiness that God has given them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That different?
Right.
So it doesn't matter if they smell, it doesn't matter if they're good looking, it doesn't matter if they're heavy or thin or whatever. All I'm doing is recognizing that they've been bestowed worth because of the core of what the scriptures teach about what God is like. Mm-hmm. God is the God that enters the burning building.
Right. I mean, to start with, like, for God so loved the world.
Come on.
That's just a massive declaration that, like, God does love the world.
He does.
You know, and it's a matter of then us to see that in a way that calls us into interjecting with it. It's
All right. So we're going to wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
How long was this one?
55.
Oh my God. I always worry. I always worry, like, what are we going to talk about? No problem.
Yeah.
All right, so Izzy, you're going to join us for number 3, if that's okay.
Whoa.
And here's what I want to do. I want to do, despite all of that, why we are still unbelievably committed to the visible forms of Jesus following. That's what I'm interested in, because we've all hurt and been hurt. Mm-hmm. We agree with a lot of what's being said.
Yep.
And yet, why are we still like hopelessly here?
Yeah.
And love it and wrestle with it. And so that's the conversation I want to have next.
Great.
Yay.
So I want to have the church. Here's why people are staying with you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
All right. So as always, we're so grateful for feedback. We're so grateful when you share your stories with us and where you're listening from. I mean, that's absolutely amazing when we hear where you're listening from. It's just ridiculous. We love the fact that many of you are asking great questions and sharing your stories, and so thank you for the great privilege of being part of your life. We have 2 podcasts, as you know. One that's the little church one. If you what do you do now? What is it? Vox
Community Podcast.
Yeah, that's what it is. I always forget it. And so there's that one, which is the Bible-y kind of thing.
Right.
And then there's this one.
Right.
And then we're dreaming up a third one that we'll share more about. This one is just it's just Andy Bear alone, talking to himself in a small room, and just his mutterings. It'll be glorious.
Oh, if someone could only pay me to do that.
Yes. So anyway, we're incredibly privileged as always. All right. Anything you want to add?
Yep. Over the next couple weeks, we're transitioning the podcast. It will be over at voxpodcast.com. You'll actually be able to get to both the podcasts that we have currently, and then in addition to the third one that will launch. You could email us at hello@voxpodcast.com, which, to my apologies, last week wasn't working for the first few days after it came out. I made a critical technical mistake, and that was on my part. So if you wrote us and it didn't go through or bounce back, do it again.
Hello, it's working.
Hello.
Yep, but that's it.
Hello.
So,
it's me.
Subversive Kingdom is going away.
Yes, it is.
We're
Thankfully.
Ta-ta to that.
Thankfully.
So,
and big pictures of me.
Right.
Which are the only kind there are.
Right. And if everything works properly, if you subscribe on iTunes, there shouldn't be any hiccups. It'll just change over. So
let us know if you have any trouble.
Yeah,
so we've moved to SoundCloud, and so it's voxpodcast.com instead of subversivekingdom.com. Mm-hmm. But the better idea is just to subscribe, so you don't even have to mess with it.
Yeah.
Correct?
That's great. Yeah,
okay.
That's fine.
All right. Now, Izzy, a couple of people have asked, hey, how do we listen to Izzy Ray songs?
Oh.
And Izzy, can we use some of Izzy's music for intro and outro?
Yes.
At some point.
We would have to ask for her professional opinion.
I would have to give permission.
Her licensing.
To use
Right.
licensing.
Might require some paperwork and some
some notaries.
Right. A few things might have to fall off the back of the truck for her.
Okay.
In order to make
you
that
know
happen.
what, guys? I'll just put it out there right now. You can use it.
Yes.
Oh, all right.
Verbal confirmation.
Nice. All right, save it at
save
12:07 p.m. on Monday, September 26th in the Vox World headquarters, 102 degrees.
Yep.
Whoa.
Izzy Ray has given us permission, but we want you to check her music out at izzyray.com, IZZI, and RA Why? So we love having her as a resident artist and a millennial, because we love those millennials.
Oh man, we're the best.
They'll be supported. They'll be taking care of us when we're old. So we better
We're
be
the
nice.
best.
We'd better.
So millennial of
Oh,
you.
I know.
Yes,
I
I
know, guys.
All right, so brothers and sisters, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance to you and may he give you peace in these days. Again, thank you for listening. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Vox, the Mike Erre podcast. Be sure to like Mike on Facebook at facebook.com/official Mike Erre. Follow Mike on Twitter and Periscope at Mike Erre for live interaction and ongoing Q&A. Don't forget to visit subversivekingdom.com for further engagement and information about Mike.